Hello everyone, welcome back to Voice on Film. Now we asked you to decide the Prime Video movie that we should review next. There were some options that you could vote for on Twitter. Moonstruck, Silver and the Book of Dreams, The Birdcage, nice retro movie, and Saltburn, which of course recently went up on Prime Video. 56.3% of you suggested Saltburn. I wonder why that is, Chris.
Who's the 0.3%? That's what I'm wondering. Is there a third of a person somewhere that's voted? That must be one person in 300 or something. I don't know. That's a lot of voting. That's good.
We were just saying just before we started recording that this film has really divided people, and that's what I love. And by the way, this is going to be quite spoilery. He's saying get quite excited. My cable's just flung up. So I think we're going to talk about obviously details because this did come out over Christmas, didn't it? So it's been out a good month. So if you haven't seen it yet, then be warned because there will be some spoilers.
Where have you been if you haven't seen it? Everybody's
exactly.
seen it.
But you did see it quite recently, right?
I was really late to the party, but I'm glad I waited. I savoured it because I'd waited.
So it's a black comedy, psychological thriller film. I mean, that's a real mishmash of genres, isn't it? They're cramming it in, aren't they?
I love the fact that it's really divided people because, to be honest, I was just like, yeah, this is a good film. I like this. And then all my friends have been saying, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. And you do have to watch it to make your own mind up. You do have to sort of go, okay, is this am I enjoying this as a comedy? Do I not like it because it's not a very good thriller? You have to kind of work out what your position is about it. It's not that it's like Art House or anything, but it kind of, it encourages you to engage with it. I think it's quite interesting.
A fantastic cast, right the way. I mean, I've seen these people in so many movies. I mean, obviously Richard E. Grant goes way back with Nail and I think probably was one of the early films that he starred in, but yeah, he's been in loads. So it's set in Oxford and Northamptonshire. It focuses on a student at Oxford who becomes fixated with a popular aristocratic fellow student at his university. It's Oxford University. Later invites him to spend the summer at his very eccentric family's estate, and of course the eccentric family is Rosamund Pike and Richard E. Grant. They play the parents. There's a lot to unpack, isn't there, with this film?
I've got to say, shout out to those two stars because, I mean, they are I just think they're brilliant in it. I mean, I love Rosamund Pike, love Richard E. Grant, and I just think their performances are just effortless. They just make it look so easy. They're just like, these are the roles they were meant to play, They just play bonkers, aristocratic, disconnected parents so wonderfully. And look, I want to be careful about spoilers, but there's an amazing
No, do the spoilers. We can do the spoilers. It's fine. Please do the spoilers.
As parents, they get the worst news a parent could ever have. Their child has died. And, literally a minute after discovering the body, Rosamund Pike's like, anyway, I think it's lunchtime. And I served like this lunch, which they sit there and eat. I mean, the appetites are fully healthy. They just sit there and eat this. And, they sort of skirt around the issue about the fact that their child's just died. But it's basically, okay, fine, let's just carry on with our lives.
How can you really connect with a person like that when most of us wouldn't behave like that? And I think it's because it's a comedy. It's a very dark comedy. So I think they can push the foot on the exaggerator. Not on the accelerator, on the exaggerator. So I love it for that reason, because it is like proper out there. It's like extreme, isn't it?
You know what? I would answer that point by, yes, of course you can't. I mean, I can't relate to people who live in a massive house like that, who have lives like that at all. But what's really curious is that we're used to seeing depictions of those kind of families, those kinds of living arrangements a lot. I mean, they're in TV dramas, they're in films all the time. We all sit there and go, oh, wish I had a great big mansion, wish I had butlers and people, waiting on me all the time. But what's really curious about this film is that I got a real sense of the outsider in it. And a lot of those films are presented like you're sort of welcomed into the world and you sort of sit, it's like The Crown, it's like you're sitting there with the Queen enjoying, cold soup or whatever it is she eats. And, most of those dramas rely on the fact that they sort of welcome you in. And this one's a little bit different, I think, because I think you feel for Barry Keoghan's character, if that's how you say it. You sort of feel the outsiderness and you sort of, you kind of just go, okay, these people are insane. Of course they're insane. And you're an outsider with him. And I think that's a really clever thing about it. I mean, I suspect that's why some people hate it. I liked the fact that I felt like I was outside of those worlds and that they were completely insane worlds, and I didn't want to be part of those worlds, but I felt I was outside of it, and I felt his outsiderness, you know?
Yeah, because let's face it, these people are just horrible. I mean, you just hate all of these people, but I love them because they were so extreme. I mean, these are roles that I think these actors would have just, chomped at the bit to get involved with, because they are brilliantly eccentric and brilliantly complicated, and also just nasty pieces of work. So, I mean, it's the perfect role for you if you want a challenge, isn't it?
I think the other thing for me about this, you were talking about how you classify it earlier. You start watching and you think, oh, okay, this is a film about class, maybe. Maybe this is a film about, the sort of upper classes and the middle classes and the working classes, and, maybe that's what's going on. And then sort of quickly you're like, oh, okay, no, it's about sexuality, and it's about being, being different to everybody else, or being fluid, or whatever it's about.
Being the other,
and
yeah.
Then you're like, well, is it about tradition and the upholding of tradition and all those kind of old English things versus someone who's coming from a more contemporary world? And actually, the truth is, it's all of those things. It's about all of those things. Yes, okay, look, this is not our house. It doesn't get into massive debates about the class system or sexuality.
No, because it's fun. It's a fun film, isn't it?
It's fun. But they're all in there. These are all really big component parts of the film for me,
Yeah, no, you're right, because it does deal with that. It deals with Barry Keoghan's character obviously feeling like an outsider because he doesn't understand. He has no experience of that kind of upper class mannerism. He doesn't know how to relate to people that are on a different level to him. But then, are they on a different level to him? I mean, in some ways they are, in some they're not. It doesn't make them superior, because in some ways they're inferior. But then, of course, what he ends up doing is just the worst thing that you could do as a human being. So in other ways, yes, he is down there because he's obviously committing all these crimes.
He's playing a game, and I've got to say, I'm always a bit thick when it comes to films like this, and I didn't work out what he was doing until the last time he did it, despite the fact that my husband sat next to me was like, oh, I know what's going on, about 10 minutes into the film, and I was like, well, I don't, no spoilers. It took me a while to get it, but actually, he's played this incredible game all the way through the film. You're right, he, having had a lot of sympathy for him because he's been excluded from all these worlds, and they've made him feel kind of small or different or unimportant or whatever. Actually, in the end, you're like, actually, we're a really nasty piece of work, and all you've done is teach these people a lesson, and absolutely fair play. And maybe the fantasy element of this film is that we'd all love to teach people like that a lesson. None of us have got the balls or want to break the law quite to that degree, probably, but actually that's what he's done. or actually just kill people, yeah.
I mean probably the most important aspect of his behaviour.
Is that illegal? I guess that's illegal.
So let's talk about that infatuation, because obviously he becomes infatuated with Felix. Can we just say, Jacob Elordi, who plays Felix, he's Australian, he's putting on a British accent. Did that throw you off? Was that jarring for you? I mean, there were a couple of occasions where he did sound Australian. I would imagine it's pretty difficult to do, though, if you're doing the plumbing.
Like I say, I'm a bit thick about these things. I thought he was an aristocratic, floppy-haired twit. I got it totally. I've totally bought into him. Yeah, I know too many people. I've met too many people like that in my life to, I just know them. They're out there in the world. I thought he represented that really, really well.
It's funny, isn't it? Because not only is he doing another accent, he is actually being posh as well. So there's two challenges really with that. So Oliver is very infatuated with him. Let's talk about that scene then, the bath scene.
I thought he was just exfoliating.
Had his loofah out.
He was just cleaning between his toes. That's why he was down like that. Honestly, when you get to the end of the film and you realise that he's been playing this game, it's a bit blurry again looking back at some of that stuff, isn't it? Because you think that was the act of someone truly obsessed. I mean, literally sucking up the bathwater of someone who's just, in the bath,
Clipped his nails, yeah.
You've got to be into that, You've got to be into someone to do that, or completely insane. And then by the end of the film, you're like, okay, you're insane in different ways, So I thought that a really fascinating scene, absolutely amazing, really
because
powerful.
Then he gets with Felix's sister, who's brilliantly played by Alison Oliver, and that's quite an intense scene as well. And a lot of people probably would not find that comfortable viewing either. I mean, God, I've seen so much stuff. It's water off a duck's back, really, for me. Not in that bathtub again, though. So I can pretty much handle most things, but I did think that was quite out there as well.
You see, but are both of these behaviours just amazing examples of the length someone will go to wreak their revenge on the class system, to get all the money in the world, which is presumably what he's after doing? Is that just what you have to go through to do that? I mean, if it is, I'm kind of happy paying my mortgage off, to be honest. I don't really want to suck out spunky bathwater and do what he did. I don't want to do those things just to be a multi-gazillionaire, but other people might want to do that, and that's their choice. That's fine,
Should we talk about the grave scene at the end, humping that soil?
We can talk about that. To be honest, it was slightly eclipsed for me by the very, very last bit of the film. I'd read about the grave scene, so I kind of knew that was going to happen. And again, you've got to be pretty obsessed to want to, the grave, I suppose. But that's the lengths you have to go to for your £1 million, isn't it? That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. I prefer the celebratory scene at the end with Sophia Ellis-Bextor playing. Although, some people aren't such a fan of her music, I know. But that seems a bit more joyous and celebratory. And
can I just say, he nearly had my eye out when he was parading around.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed that scene. And the grave scene's just another one of those obsessive behaviours. It's just another one of those things. But look, I want to talk about the twists. Because I thought, maybe I'm a bit thick and maybe you didn't consider it to be a twist. But I think the bit where Felix actually sort of gets his number, and works out what Oliver's up to, it just really changed for me then. I was like, oh my God, what's he going to do? How's he going to get out of this pickle?
Is that one of your dogs just trying to escape the room there? Because you're talking about sordid graveyard scenes.
The dog's like, I will not get in the bath and let that out. I'm not doing it.
I did think that twist was a surprise, so I didn't see that coming at all.
What you're starting to piece together is how he's getting this whole family on side. He's working out how to manipulate them all. Even slow coach me had worked that out, and one by one he was picking them off, and he had something on all of them. And then suddenly the tables are turned. Felix is like, actually, I've got the power, and you've come into this family and to this house, and you've disrupted it, and you're not welcome anymore. Obviously, spoiler alert, Oliver's not stupid, and he's like, okay, well, I can deal with that. That's in my plan. Don't worry, I can deal with you being found out.
It's quite a tongue-in-cheek soundtrack, isn't it? When you think about it, you think about the meaning of the songs, and obviously Sophie Ellis-Bextor's had a career resurgence thanks to the film. I even noticed on her video on YouTube it does say as featured in Saltburn, so they've obviously retweaked bits and pieces, and now she's having all her albums out on the shelves again. So it's good for her.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a slightly joyous way to end the film. Like I say, I think for me, everything he's done is about embodying this kind of taboo thing that lots of us might want to do, and it's actually quite nice for the dog to have its day at the end and to go, yeah, I got away with it. Great, I'm going to dance around the house with my cock out to Sophia Ellis-Bextor because I won. To be honest, I might want to do that if I'd got all that money through.
I bet you have done it.
Well, I might do it occasionally when I win a fight on the pools or whatever. Yeah, but as ever, I'm going to have a little shout out for the title sequence as well here, because let's talk typography. I mean, typography obsession of mine.
Oh yeah.
But I saw this thing on the internet a couple of days later about the title card and about the typeface that they use being exactly the same as the original Dracula film, and I'm just like, wow, so amazing.
I know, because it's really dark, isn't it? It definitely gives Hammer horror vibes.
Absolutely.
It's very influential, this film. I see that Molly May Hague already has recreated that final dance scene. I'm quite surprised we haven't actually mentioned Carey Mulligan, because she plays poor dear Pamela, who is Elspeth's friend. And she is brilliant. She's playing a character I've never seen her play before.
Upper class twits. I mean, like complete idiot nonsense woman. I mean, so, just so disconnected. And just that's a really amazing comic performance, I think. I think she plays it so well. Absolutely brilliantly.
I'm going to go for 4.
Totally 4.5.
It's a strong 4.
It's a very strong 4. I think it's. I can't give it a 5 really, just because it's not the most perfect film in the world. It's not. There are little things about it, as there always are. But it was a very strong 4 for me. Really, I really enjoyed it, and I'd watch it again. Absolutely, definitely would watch it again.
Yeah, it was an entertaining watch. Thank you everybody for suggesting this film for us to review. Head over to Twitter or X. Are we calling it Twitter? Yes, we are, aren't we? We're not calling it X now.
I'm so old, I'm calling it Twitter for sure.
Nobody's calling it Twitter. So find us there, London Boys, LDN Boys, and watch out for the next, selection of films that you can vote for. And thank you very much for watching. Chris, always good to see you.